So the third book that I'm reviewing for this series is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. This book, I hadn't really heard about it very much before this class. I had seen the cover. I used to work at a bookstore, so I'd seen the cover and I was familiar with the book, but it never really pulled at me to read it. But for this class, for these book reviews specifically, I wanted to do a couple of books that I had mixed opinions on rather than simply picking my favorite books that I read. So that's why I chose to do a book that I have kind of a off opinion about. It's not necessarily that I didn't like this book. I will get to it. It's more like I just didn't it just didn't do that like thing for me. Like I didn't connect with the characters or with the plot or with the book itself as much as I thought I would. There definitely were parts where I connected more than others, but overall it wasn't a book that pulled me in. I overall felt like I was just kind of there was like a wall between me and the characters, if that makes sense. I'll talk a little bit more about the review after I give a short summary. Basically, this book is about this girl named Alex who has committed a crime. She killed somebody and is said to have this like animalistic sense inside of her, this kind of wild side. And basically what awakens it is her sister 3 years prior was essayed, um, assaulted and kidnapped, and she ended up being killed by this man, and Alex was involved in his death. Of course, Alex is a high schooler, so just the fact that she committed such a crime like that to me seemed very unrealistic. I am aware that in fiction, a lot of times we get these controversial or kind of more larger than life stories that can't possibly seem real, but sometimes I do connect with them. I think it's mainly because there were so many other characters in the novel that were relatively ordinary until around halfway through the book when other stuff started happening. I'm trying not to give a lot of spoilers, but I definitely didn't connect with Alex's character as much as I wanted to, especially because of the concept of her committing murder and somehow still being in high school and just covering it all up somehow. That is basically what I didn't connect with about the book as much as I thought I would. I thought maybe through the other characters I would be able to get more of a well-rounded look at the main character, Alex, especially because the other two main characters, the two secondary characters, also narrate the story. The story is told in 3 points of view, so three separate people. It's Alex, the main character, Jack, who ends up being Alex's love interest at one point, and this girl named PK. She's nicknamed PK because she is the preacher's daughter. I thought that was funny and honestly a little sad that she didn't really go by her full name, but that's just my own personal opinion of me empathizing with the character. Her actual given name is Claire. Personally, in terms of the chapters being separated into three different narrators, I didn't really enjoy that. And that's just because to me, having more than 2 points of view, or even in a novel that has flashbacks, having more than two past and present or present and future, having more than two separate narratives going on at the same time can get a little bit confusing, even if they are taking place at the same time and some things are overlapping. I understand that the author probably wanted us to get to know each of those three main characters more, and that's likely why she did that. Personally, I don't vibe with it. And I already didn't connect with these characters as much as I thought I would. It's honestly, I don't have a lot of experience reviewing novels, which is why I chose to do this project so that I could challenge myself a little bit more. But I don't really, it's hard for me to explain why it was that I didn't connect with this specific book if I thought that it was relatively well written. I don't think it was about the plot or the narrative or the way the storyline was structured or the way the characters were presented or that it was too slow or too fast. It's just, I personally didn't get that click feeling with the characters. I didn't get that feeling where I was like enthralled in the novel and just reading it and not being able to stop reading it. It was, I was entertained by it, but more in the way that you would be entertained by, again, a TV show that you're not completely submerged into that world. And usually when it comes to novels, I tend to enjoy books that can take me out of the real world and throw me into just obsessing over that book and those characters for as long as I'm reading the book. It's definitely important for me. And I can't really pinpoint what exactly is off. Part of me wants to say that it's the fact that there were three narratives going on at the same time, or maybe how unrealistic some of Alex's situations were, like the fact that she was able to kill someone and still continue to go to school and be a normal high school girl without being implied to be a sociopath or anything like that. Personally, like, I understand that she was going through a lot of grief with her sister, and I know that it might seem realistic in a specific type of book for Alex to have done that. But in this book, it seemed way too normal for Alex to react in those ways, even if they did say that Alex, even if the author did mention through Alex that she was not the most emotional person, but at the same time, she was. Basically, Alex is described as being very, very, like, feeling a lot of stuff, but also not really expressing it, which makes a lot of sense due to her grief over losing her sister. It's mainly the fact that she killed someone and was not feeling any type of emotion publicly about it. That kind of sits weird with me, although I'm sure it could be possible with somebody with certain types of mental illnesses. But again, that's not talked about. So I don't really know what to do with that. Those are just some reasons why the book didn't enthrall me as much as other books that I've read this semester have. Personally, I do think the book has some important messages. If you're triggered by any type of essay or animal harm or abusive types of relationships of different kinds, don't read it, or at least be careful. Take it as a trigger warning. It is a more mature book, so in terms of audiences, I would not recommend it for anyone under 16 or 17. I would say that this book is somewhere qualified as both new adult and young adult in my head, because even if its cover and the fact that it's set in a high school with high school students, that type of vibe gives off young adult. However, the actual themes inside of the book, the fact that the author chooses to include cuss words and more graphic details, that makes it seem more new adult, leaning towards adult fiction. However, though, I do see a trend in some of the books I've read this semester of books that are more graphic in detail or in their words, or having more cuss words, more sex scenes, more drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. That's definitely a trend in YA, and it's because I feel like more teens are able to relate to books if they're actually raw and real. And I definitely agree with that. I read a lot of Ellen Hopkins books when I was in high school, so I definitely relate to teens wanting books that where the main characters are going through similar experiences than them. But again, it was not a book that I disliked necessarily. It just wasn't a book where I connected with the characters as much as I wanted to. I did not really enjoy the point of view switching around so much to 3 different characters because it didn't really allow me to get to know Alex, the main character, as much as I wanted to. Even if I know that that's part of the point that the author is trying to make, part of the point is that she has a wall between her and the outside world, which also means her and the reader. I would give the book a try if you're into edgier YA books, but be mindful of the triggers. And if you need books where you can really connect with the characters, give it a chance. But just if you connect to it, that's great. If you don't, that's great. That's just my personal opinion. But thank you so much for watching this review.